meeting of October 4th, 2021.
Nice
Called to order. Mr. Barbarillo.
Here. Here at back. How are you? Anywhere you want. How are you?
Mr. Velovich.
Mr. Velovich is not feeling well. She notified the school board president and the superintendent that she wanted to be remotely connected.
I don't, Mr. Santana, I don't remember calling on you. Could you please wait until we're finished?
Okay, and then I stay.
Then you can tell us whatever you want then. Mr. Itkin?
Here.
Ms. Mahan?
Present.
Ms. Quackenbush?
Here.
Mr. Rosenberg?
Here.
Mr. Santana?
Present.
Mr. Spindell?
Present.
Mr. Van here. New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of the public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this Act, the Fairlawn Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having a date, time, and place thereof distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted to the Board of Education Administrative Office, and sent to the Bergen Record and Star Ledger. The announced posting for the work session policy meeting along with the date, time, and place thereof was distributed on September 28, 2021. Events to be discussed during the closed work session. This is not going to be a closed work session. Would you join me in a flag salute, please? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to make an announcement pursuant to Executive Order 253. If you're in this room, you must have a mask on. If you don't want to wear a mask, you cannot stay. Mr. Santana, you want to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to share with the board and with the board that board member Rita Favelovic is not feeling well. That's why she's not physically here. However, she notified the board president and the superintendent so she can be connected via remotely, like we have been allowed to do so under special circumstances. And I just want to know if she's going to be able to connect because she wants to be able to connect.
I spoke with Mrs. Palovich. I sent her a message. 45 minutes ago, I received her message. Unfortunately,
It's not a dialogue.
Unfortunately, I received it 45 minutes ago that she couldn't make the meeting. I said we were not ready to set up telephone conferencing in for this meeting. Thank you.
I'm going to excuse myself. I'm not comfortable.
Well, hold on. If you're not wearing a mask, you can't stay. Sir, you understand?
Are you addressing me?
Yes, sir.
Is that statute which you quoted, does it include exceptions for medical conditions?
I don't believe so.
Point of information.
I have
No, there's no point of information. I'm having a discussion.
There's an exception for medical reasons. So you are incorrect, Mr. Van.
Do you have medical documentation on you?
It's not required to present it. Where does that say that in the public
It's not
law?
a deal. I'm gonna excuse myself, so you can just mark it in my, I'm not comfortable. I have 2 small children, and they are at risk because they are unvaccinated.
Listen, Ms. Mahan, could you please just hang out?
I'm gonna hang out in the hallway.
Unfortunately, I'm sorry, not looking to give you a hard time by any means,
Listen,
but Executive Order 253.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I cannot put a mask due to medical condition. And I'm not at liberty to discuss with you exactly what this medical condition is.
Mr. President, the policy does have an exception for medical reasons, as far as I'm concerned.
Well done.
A motion for a recess for 5 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, 5-minute recess. If you want to go talk in your office. And a small conversation with the board. I want to make it known that yes, there are exemptions to the mask mandate. However, you need written medical proof that you have a health condition that does not allow you to wear a mask.
Before we proceed any further, I'd like you to apologize for me. You humiliated me publicly. I request you apologize to me right now.
I'm going to apologize to you. I certainly did not mean to single you out or make you feel unwanted or hurt.
You did. If you didn't want to, you shouldn't have.
Do you want the apology or not?
Yes, I want you to apologize clearly.
I apologize if I made you feel bad.
You got it.
Okay, thank you. But now I have to ask you to leave.
No, I will not.
Sir, that's the policy, that's the law, it's the mandate by the state.
According to the HIPAA law, which is definitely a law, not executive order, I'm in absolutely no, obligation to provide any medical details to you, and you are under absolutely no right to request anything from me.
I am well within my rights.
Okay,
and if
present
you're
the
not-
documentation
Sir,
which
are you
proves.
going to leave or not?
Please present a law which tells you that you have the
Executive
right
Order
position.
251.
You just misquoted Executive Order 251, saying that it doesn't have exemptions for medical reasons.
Sir, are you going to leave or you're not going to leave?
No, I'm not.
All right.
You will have to remove me physically. I have a right to be.
All right, you know what? How about this? I have a better idea.
Please.
Could I have a motion to adjourn this meeting to another date?
No, I'll stop by.
Wait,
another
we're
day.
making a motion, so there's a motion.
Why
Do I
not?
have a second? Okay, discussion. Mr. Santan.
Okay, that motion, Mr. President, you immediately entertain that motion, okay? I think just as we had a closed session to discuss items in closed session, you just came out of nowhere to do this. This meeting is a very important meeting, okay? This meeting was planned, the community was informed ahead of time. I think it is not democratic from you to just, out of nowhere, shut down this meeting and end this meeting. I think you're making the wrong decision. I think you need to consult with us, the board, and I don't think you should do that.
We're having a discussion right now, though. You're telling me why I'm wrong.
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying you're making a decision that is undemocratic. You haven't consulted with us. There was a case, we spoke in private, and you want to end the meeting because of one person. I think there are more diplomatic and neighborly ways to do things. I don't think we should force, I don't think we should use force or anything that could be perceived as intimidation to do what we need to do. Now, I apologize to our neighbor. I was under the impression that the medical exception was medical exception and that's it. Now, the board attorney, I haven't heard the board attorney, but I trust the superintendent and the board president that the board attorney stated that there is a medical note requirement. Now, I must follow the law, even when I don't agree with the law. So, if there's a law that says an executive reason that says you have to have a medical note, the Board of Education is bound by the Code of Ethics to follow that, the first Code of Ethics. But I think we need to be kind, polite, and humble when speaking, even to those that raise their voice at us, even to those that do not agree with us, even to those that don't look like us, that have an accent like me and other people. So I would like to please ask our neighbor to comply.
You mean you asking me to leave the office?
No, we must follow the law. So I ask you to reconsider your position.
Before I reconsider even try to reconsider my position, I would like Mr. President to really point out the line which says that I have to leave. I can't find it here, I'm sorry.
Line where?
I'd like to.
In this
comment.
executive
Sir,
order
sir.
which you quoted, number 251.
Okay, look.
I really,
We spoke to the board attorney.
Right.
He told us this was the position to take.
why don't you
That's
call
what we're taking.
Mr. Attorney and ask him on the record to
We're not
state.
gonna do this.
Mr.
Any other
President,
board members want to say
I
anything
just
about the
looked
motion
through
to
this
adjourn?
executive order, I didn't
Sir,
find, I'm
sir,
sorry.
it's the board's turn. I'll get to you in a moment. Mr. Rosenberg.
I just want to say one thing, because there was some points that Mr. Santana said that I just want to say are just not true, okay? This has nothing to do with what someone sounds like. This has nothing to do with someone's race, color, creed. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has to do with following the executive order that we make our children follow every day. Okay? Every door of this building says that masks must be worn. Every door of this building. It's the law right now. The executive order has the basis, is the law.
It's not a law.
Executive order is not a law.
Okay, we're not gonna debate
It has the
law
force.
school stuff here.
It has the force of law.
That's what we were told by our attorney, that the executive order has the force of law because the legislature gave the governor the authority to make that executive order. That's what we were told at the last public meeting by the attorney. So, according to our attorney, according to School Boards Association, executive order is law.
But
You may not like it, but that's what it is.
So we happen to be in a funny time of year like always, and it seems like we're not able to get the business of the Board of Education done. And we have board members we have one board member that has an immunocompromised child, and it's not fair to the board member that got duly elected by the citizens of Fairlawn to feel uncomfortable in a meeting because someone's not wearing a mask. And by the way, when Mr. Bantha first started the meeting, he said what the policy, what the mandate was, and he didn't single anyone out until after the gentleman asked if he was being singled out. So that happened. It's not time for public comment yet. But anyways.
Excuse me.
Anyways.
I can raise my hand. I have the right to raise my hand. I don't think you're the president or the chair of the.
Okay, and you haven't been called on, so.
That's fine. I raised my
But-
hand.
I
and you
am-
said,
Hold on.
hold on,
Mr. President,
hold
can you
on.
just be
Look.
nice and polite to the people, because they're gonna get even more mad. Just be nice to the people.
I just
I
raised
just
my
told you she
hand,
hadn't
and-
been recognized, that's all.
But you can say that as the president
Okay,
and
I
chair
understand,
of the
but
board.
please, I don't wanna have a back and forth here. This is not gonna,
Can I can probably settle this thing right now. You ready?
go ahead.
All
I'm
staff,
open to all ideas.
all school staff, students, and visitors must wear masks indoors unless mask wearing inhibits the individual's health, including in extreme heat indoors. The individual has trouble breathing, is unconscious, or is incapacitated. A student has a documented medical condition reflected in an IEP or 504 that precludes mask wearing. The individual is engaging in an activity that cannot be physically be performed wearing a mask, eating, drinking, playing a musical instrument. The individual is under the age of 2. The individual is engaged in a high-intensity physical activity and physical education class when the area of well-ventilated and social distancing requirements of 6 feet are maintained, or wearing a mask created an unsafe condition to operate equipment or execute a task.
Okay, thank you.
Wait a minute. I have 2 kids that have a medical condition that's serious, and most of you on this board know that. He's sitting over here. If these people over here, myself, the gentleman over there, and all these people over here don't have a problem, 6 feet rule is what I have followed for the last 20 years. He's not going in your space. And if most people, and especially in that corner over there. So if he's 6 feet apart, because most of these rules it's school, staff, students, visitors, blah, 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 whatever. We're at a meeting. We're in a controlled setting. He can even sit where he's standing right now. And if any of us that are sitting here have a problem, we would have said it already. So if we don't have a problem, somebody that's sitting on the opposite side of the room shouldn't have a problem, because not all kids wear masks in school. Not all kids are
Okay, Ms.
do what
Gorman,
they're supposed
I
to
really,
do.
I like to speak, so.
I think
Any
if
other
he
board
sits.
members wanna make a comment? Oh, Mike. Mr. Santana.
We cannot end this meeting because we disagree with one person. We should not do that. We should not do that, because we are going to discuss policies that you may not agree with a policy. So what are we gonna do? End the meeting because we don't agree with a policy? So it's the same thing as ending a meeting because we don't agree with what one citizen is doing. So I think we need to be careful because we are sending, and we have to be careful the message we are sending. This meeting, I'm asking everybody, don't vote to end this meeting. We have important business to take care of, okay? The business of the children of Fairlawn cannot be voted down tonight. We have to have this meeting. We cannot run away from this meeting. We need to have this meeting. So, Mr. President, I ask you respectfully, please withdraw your motion so we can get started with the business of the children of Fairlawn.
Okay.
Mr. Bonta.
It's not my motion. I asked for a motion, somebody made a motion, somebody made a second.
Who made the motion?
Mike?
Mr. Rosenberg, please
Please
withdraw the
don't-
motion.
We're not supposed to be addressing board members directly, because that never leads to anything good. So you're wishing for the motion maker and a seconder to withdraw the motion.
Yes, duly,
Okay.
yes.
Do the maker and seconder wish to withdraw the motion?
I just want to see the mandate followed. That's all
Okay.
I'm
It is
asking.
being
All
followed.
right,
They,
thank you.
does not
Thank
require.
you, thank you, sir, thank you. Cindy, do you have your hand
If
up?
not,
I did, because I just don't know where this is going to lead, and it's not gonna lead well. I totally understand Julie's, point of view, and I don't care if she's 9 feet or 12 feet. If she doesn't feel comfortable, she doesn't feel comfortable. But we do have, policy, an executive order to follow. I certainly don't want there to be forcible removal. That seems absurd and ridiculous.
I agree.
But how are we going to get to a resolution?
No,
I
Mr.
have a
Santana,
solution.
you've spoken like 3 times. Anybody else want to speak? I'll give you another minute. Go
I
ahead.
have a solution. Maybe if Mr. Seye can be by the door.
By the door?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can stand by. I actually stood up to be even farther away from.
Yeah, if he can be outside,
No,
if he can be outside,
it's in the building. You're not supposed to be in the building without a mask unless you have documented medical evidence that.
Actually,
It
the
doesn't
executive
say that.
order doesn't say
Okay,
that.
I haven't recognized anybody from the audience, so I appreciate it if you didn't yell out, okay? And that's what we've been advised by the attorney. I'm not gonna have debate about it. I'm gonna call the roll for the adjournment. Yeah, why not? I mean, that's really not Robert's rules, but go ahead. I'll give everybody a minute. Go ahead. Who wants to say something? Oh, not you, sir. You already spoke. Yes, sir. Just state your name, please.
I'd rather not state my name.
Okay, I don't want to get in a fight.
I would like
Go ahead.
to say that being that this is a contentious issue that needs to be resolved by a discussion other than this group, Mr. Santana's point is that we should do the mature thing as adults and move along with business and decide that this mask issue is secondary to the important discussion that needs to happen. The attorney is not the last man who has something to say about this executive order and shouldn't be used as a tool by this board to make a decision on that mask, yes or no, in this particular issue. So we, as a group, and the board should do the right thing as adults, table this back and forth discussion about masks, and move on to more the important matters that Mr. Santana had talked about, which is what's on the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else want to say anything? All right, I'm going to call the roll. This is the, what? This is the motion to
I raised
adjourn.
my hand, you didn't call me. You saw me raising hand, right?
let him talk.
Go ahead, sir.
So, Mr. President, I have several points. Number one, the gentleman before me is absolutely right. Attorney, who I don't even know the name, and I requested to state the name of the attorney.
John Comegno, C-O-G-M-E-N-O, John Comegno.
John Comegno. Thank
Right.
you very much. I appreciate it. John Comegno. So this is number one. He is not the judge for the issue. The judge will be if you expel me from the room under these conditions, I will personally sue you in the Superior Court of Bergen County, if not higher. And then the judge will decide who is right and who is wrong, whether you should expel me from this room or not. So I respectfully ask you to just scrap this discussion, proceed with a thoughtful business, and just forget about it. Because I truly have documented medical condition, I would not be inventing it, and I cannot put on a mask. However, I have the right to be here. And I can tell you that requesting someone not to enter the building because they cannot wear a mask is a clear form of discrimination. So not only you discriminated me, not allowing me to enter the building if I cannot wear a mask, under medical condition, you also expel me because I cannot wear a mask. So that will be double discrimination, and really, it's up to you to heed my kind request to proceed with the business, or expel me forcefully. Like, I won't fight with you physically, of course, right? So if you proceed, I will really abide with the majority of the board, but everyone who voted yes will be a defendant in that claim. Thank you very much.
Thank you. No, don't worry about it. It's enough. Okay, this is the motion to adjourn. Mr. Barbarulo. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Sorry, I just wanted to say that Julie had a perfectly valid choice to make. It is not, if she doesn't feel safe in a room, absolutely she should remove herself. I personally wear a 95 mask wherever I go, so the choice is not on the other person. I am protecting myself. My kids wear 95s to school because I don't trust what other people do or don't do. However, we've been discussing this for a half hour. We've been in the room with this gentleman for a half hour. The business of the board is not being done, and we're still discussing this. So one thing is to make personal decisions for our own health and the health of our children. And another one is spend more time that should be discussing policies into whether or not we should adjourn the meeting. Just my 2 cents.
Thanks. Anyone else? Thank you. All right, motion to adjourn. Mr. Barbarulo.
No, just let's get on this.
Mr. Aitken. Ms. Quackenbush.
No.
Mr. Rosenberg.
No.
Mr. Singletana.
No adjourn.
Mr. Spindell.
No.
Mr. Banta. No, it's a losing cause. Okay. Somebody tell Julie, I'll go find her and tell her she can't stay. Because okay. We're done with that. And over to you, Nick, regarding policies and how we're going to do this and what's next.
So,
What?
As Mr. Santana stated in the beginning, Rita could not come because she is sick.
Right.
I wanted to ask if it is possible for her to call here on somebody's cell phone.
No, she didn't give us enough notice. And she never told me she was sick. When she sent the email, it just said, "Can I attend remotely?" There's nothing about being
But
sick,
you
so.
have to.
No, we're not gonna discuss Ms. Faye Village anymore, she's not here.
Well, we
All right,
have,
we're talking about policies.
we have phones and that can conference, I mean, this is
We,
ridiculous.
I'm sorry,
Everybody has.
I would really appreciate it if the audience would not just yell out without being recognized. Right now, we're gonna discuss the policies. When we get to the public portion of that, I will call on whoever would like to speak. But please don't just yell at it. It's inappropriate and it's rude. Thank you.
So,
I need to go to my car.
What do you mean?
I need to go to my car, I've got keys in the car.
Okay, go ahead. I don't know what car you sold.
Mr. President, is there anything that prevents us from dialing to Ms. Favela's phone and putting her on speaker?
We're not gonna do that.
so, the policy meeting that we're having tonight, and I'll turn it over to Mrs. Ty in a minute, our Director of Human Resources, but I just want to go through a couple of things that we're going to be discussing tonight. One of them is our policy audit that we did by Strauss Esme Associates. They're probably one of the biggest policy writers in the state of New Jersey. They provide you legal advice, guiding templates of what a district's policy should look like, and then you could craft it and hone it to your own policies for the district. They let you know when policies need to be updated, and policies need to be abolished because they're not useful anymore, and expired. When new policies come out, in light of COVID, we had a lot of new policies that had to be adopted. So what's guiding us tonight is that policy audit that we actually had conducted for us as a district. It allowed us to take a look at all of our policies that we have, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, and say, okay, these need to be abolished, these need to be updated, these are new policies. So that's what's guiding us tonight. With that being said, one of the recommendations that was made at school boards, only a recommendation, was whether or not we want to do this as a board of a whole, the policy committee, as it stands here in Fairlawn right now, or the other option is if you want to create an ad hoc policy committee, where it's a small policy committee that would work on these policies every month and then recommend them to the board, and then it can get adopted that way. Knowing Fairlawn and knowing our Board of Education, I'm assuming that you would probably want to work as a group policy as a whole, but I will leave that's up to you, as is policy writing. That's your major function as a Board of Education. So this is really up to you. This is your show tonight, and it's been a show. The third thing is the approval of the first reading of revisions and policies and the new policies. So you'll see the approval, and I'll go through this. We're going to start with the zeros, which is the bylaws of our policies, and then we'll systematically every month move on. But the first reading of these policies, of the zeros, the ones that have to be either updated or new or abolished, are the ones through the audit that we will look at. So we're not looking at the 100 policies that fall in the zero section. We're only looking at the ones that need to be updated, abolished, or removed. Then we're going to move on to the approval of the second reading of policies. These were on our first, was that last week or 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, we had a board meeting. The first reading was on there. Tonight is the second reading. The reason why these have to be done tonight is because they're very timely due to COVID. And they have to do it remote learning and virtual plans and things like that. So they have to be submitted to the state in a timely manner. So we can't wait till the end of October to do the second reading. It's not usual that we do a second reading at a policy meeting, but this is a policy meeting where we can take action. So those policies are on there. The next order of business that's on there is Mr. Santana at the last board meeting had asked if we would look at 2 policies for discussion. So we put those 2 policies on this agenda as well for discussion. And then the last thing is I broke down, if we wanted to do this on a monthly basis, we could actually complete all of our policies this school year and be up to date and complete. If you look at the last slide that's on here, you can see tonight, we're looking at, actually, we would have to lump 2 of them in. My apologies. We're 1 month behind on here. Zeros are the bylaws. 1,000 is administration, I have that as October. So 1 month, we could probably put 2 of them together. But if we did it in a systematic way, every single month, by the end of this school year, we would be in great standing with our policies and up to date. It's a commitment. It's a process. It's something that I'm going to ask that you come to consensus on. You may not always agree, and you may agree to disagree, and that's okay. But a decision should be made one way or the other. If 5 people say yes and 4 people say no, the policy has to kind of move forward, because at times, we've discussed policies, and I mean this with no disrespect, by all means, but we've discussed policies, we may not have come to terms with it, or come to an agreement, and we say we're gonna come back to it, and then we don't come back to it for some time. And then that policy is still sitting out there. So it's important that we move the process along, because there's so many, by doing that, your policies then miss an update, or become old or antiquated. So you wanna keep up with your policies as much as possible. So what I'm recommending here is that we stick to a consistent schedule, that if we're doing the zeros tonight, and next month we decide to do the thousands or 2,000s, we do the thousands and 2,000s, then we go to the 3,000s. But if we start jumping around and say, I want to talk about policy 7825 next month, we're going to be all over the place, and there are so many policies to go over. So just my humble opinion as superintendent, we could do this in a year. It's a major undertaking to do a policy audit and have them all updated. I'm in it. Denise and I said, let's do it. We could, you know, we would love to do it and be in good standing by the end of the year, but it's a commitment from the Board of Education if you want to make it. So that's all I have. I just kind of laid out what tonight was all about. At this point, I will turn it over to Mr. President and our Director of Human Resources.
Mr. Tandy, how do you hand up?
Just to respond to Superintendent's comments, I agree. However, the only thing I will add is, in the 3 years that I've been on the board, whenever we have updated policy, it has been my understanding and experience that yes, majority rules, but when it comes to policy, what I have seen from all my colleagues here is that the ideas and the thoughts of everybody here goes into the policy as much as possible, regardless of majority, minority. This shouldn't be majority, minority. This should be coming into a consensus for the betterment of the children.
Yes, and I understand what you're saying. I don't mean 5, 4, 6, 3 majority. What I'm really getting at is we should come to some type of consensus so that the policy moves on for a second reading at the next meeting. Because if it doesn't, it literally just sits out there. And several times we've talked about policies and we're like, hey, what does that policy say? And we're like, well, that was the one we were working on, but we never agreed on. So it's still sitting out there just in no man's land, a little old or antiquated. So I think it's important, though. We're here to do business, and that's what we all agreed on tonight, I believe, by being here. And the vote is what it is because we're here to do business for the betterment of the students and the community and the school district. So it's important that now we get to the business end of this, and let's start working on our policies, and then we can move on next month and hopefully work on the next batch of policies. So you're going to see a very revolving policy undertaking over the next year.
Mike, you want to say something?
Yeah, respectfully, Mr. President. I would hope that we would be able to, as opposed, policies are a little bit, are interesting, has been some of the most interesting things that I've done as a board member. I would hope that as opposed to saying majority, minority, and this and that we keep saying, that we say that we're all board members in this room, that we could reach some kind of consensus together on what these policies should end up being. And it shouldn't be a fight, everything shouldn't be a fight. And lately on this board, everything seems to be a fight. So I'm respectfully asking my fellow board members to let's try and do the business of the board, reach consensus, because that's what we're elected to do. We're not elected to just lecture everything and we're elected to do the business of the board, and that's what we're here to do tonight.
And first question is, for the board, show of hands, who wants to do this as the whole policy of the board? Okay, so that's out. It's going to be all of us doing the policy. Number 2, we pretty much in line with that timeline that Nick laid out. Do one every month, you know, do the 1,000, 2,000, and at some point we may have to double up. Is everybody good with that?
And if you look through,
Another one? Okay, go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, I want to make a comment.
I know, but, okay, go ahead. I'm not
My
stopping.
comment is, I think we have to, yes, that's a good goal, but we also have to be mindful of seeing how these first couple meetings go to make sure that that could happen, that it's a logical timeline.
listen, there's two things. Yes, depending on tonight, how tonight goes, will determine how we do moving forward for the rest of the year. If we don't get one policy done tonight, everything I just said is out the window, and we know that. And we'll regroup tomorrow. The second thing is, if you go through this, I'm speaking with the board members now, but you'll be able to see some of the sections, like maybe like 4,000, may only have 2 or 3 changes. So we may be able to lump several of them together one month, get a lot of business done, and get through it a lot quicker. Denise and I will look at that, and we'll set a good schedule for you, depending on how tonight goes. But it's important that we get to the business of policies now, because it's almost 8:30 already.
Len?
I agree, we should strive to stick to the schedule if we can. One thing I want to note is, if, for example, today we can't go through all the zeros, then next month, we shouldn't say, oh, zeros are gone, that's it, we're talking about ones. Now, if we don't have time to go through all zeros, then next month we should go back and.
No, I agree. If we
Wherever you live.
miss a couple, then that makes sense. Mr. Santana?
I would like to challenge ourselves to do more than just the minimum. You know, if one policy meeting is what the superintendent is putting on our table, I challenge ourselves to do 2 meetings on policy. I don't want to leave this board and pass on to the new board in January outdated policies. I want to get the job done by the end of our calendar year. And I think we have very talented people here on the board, and I think we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We can do more than the minimum.
Can we please get started?
Any board members? Well, the board members want to say stuff, and if I try to stop them, I get excoriated. So, any other board members have comments or questions? No. Okay, so how are we going to start with Denise?
If we can start with actually the second reading and adoption, because those were already presented at our September 23rd meeting for the first reading. And if you look at, there are 6 total policies, 4 of them are just to be abolished. So that should just be, there should be no discussion on them. The laws are no longer in effect, so they could be abolished if you adopt that this evening. The 2 that are the new policies are the road forward.
164811.
164811 and 164813. And one is the road forward, which is essentially how the district will function pursuant to, we have received the road forward plan that identifies a number of areas that the Department of Education has provided that we need to address during this time period. So that one was presented at the September 23rd meeting, and then the school employee vaccination requirements. Both of them are mandated, which means that they're either pursuant to a statute or they're pursuant to an executive order. So the board is required to adopt them. They can make some changes to the policies to be a little bit more district specific. But for the most part, it is generally pursuant to the language is pursuant to a statute or the administrative code, or Supreme Court case or an appellate case that provides the language.
Any board members have a question on 164811 and 164813? Mr. Santana.
Yeah, those 1648.13, does that mandate the district to provide, to pay for the vaccination of the employee?
164813.
Yes, employee vaccination requirements. Do we have to pay for their vaccinations?
We don't have to. We are. So we'll be providing the, sorry,
He's referring to the vaccination.
The vaccination.
Testing,
vaccination.
or the testing.
He said
Vaccination. This is the vaccination requirement. Are we on the hook to pay for the vaccine for the employees?
No, we're not.
For the vaccine insurance.
If you're not covering the state.
Any other board members? What?
First, in the agenda, could we please clearly state which ones are second reading instituted and which ones are on
These are all second readings. These were all on the September 23rd.
Just to make it clearer in this document.
You want to know which four are the ones that are being abolished?
I know now.
Oh, but this
When I
says
read
it.
this, it's not clear.
No, it says it.
It says that if you look at the PowerPoint.
It says it next to it.
PowerPoint, yes.
It says mandate abolished.
Oh.
Abolished.
You have a new one? Okay, I printed this and I didn't.
Oh, is there something?
You want to use?
Oh, this is right from the website. This was,
I printed the one that was sent to the board members.
because they all should have said abolished. I apologize.
Secondly, for 1648.11, the road forward, it is my understanding that most of this policy is basically mandated, as Denise said, with a few minor things that the district had some leeway. One of those few things is travel quarantine. So travel quarantine is basically somewhat, to a certain extent, was left to the district. And the travel quarantine that this policy mandates, I understand it was discussed with proper health authorities, with our town, health authority, and somebody else.
School position.
Right. I know at least one school that had a different travel quarantine. What they had was the unvaccinated person had to quarantine only if they travel an area with a higher transmission rate than New Jersey. Just as an example, if the person goes all the way to Vermont, for example, Vermont is obviously far away, but if Vermont has lower transmission rate than New Jersey, then in that school the person doesn't have to quarantine. Here the person would have to quarantine. This is not a request to change anything, this is not a question, this is just a comment.
Thank you. Mr. Santana.
I think the part of, I share.
Sorry, Mark, I forgot.
No, you were before.
No, go ahead, go ahead, you started.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Some of the, I had that same thought, but I think part of the rationale, as I see it now, is that if you're out of the, your neighborhood, out of your neighborhood, out of the established community, that's why you have to be, quarantined. That's what I think they're coming from.
Mark?
Yes, this is regarding the Executive Order 253 with the screening if a person is unvaccinated. It is stating here that the person must be tested a minimum of 1 to 2 times. Have we, number one, established a policy, whether it be 1 time or 2 times?
So we have a Zoom call tomorrow with the company that we're actually contracted with, who's going to be doing the testing. That'll determine whether it'll be 1 or 2 times a week. It hasn't been, it'll probably be decided within this week, but there's a good chance that it may be 1 time a week, not 2 times a week. That'll determine on how much testing can get done, how many people require testing, how many people are unvaccinated. So it's more logistical, that end of the phone call, and then we'll be able to let everybody know within the next couple of days.
Okay, would this policy be changed or just?
No, because it's still 1 to 2 times a week.
Okay.
Yeah.
The other question is, I know that other school districts are requiring the unvaccinated person to pay for this particular test.
So we're not paying this is completely free. The company that we're utilizing, the contract that we entered in to at last month's board meeting. There was a resolution for a company called LabQ, who will actually be coming here on site, setting up the testing and doing it at no cost to the person that needs to be tested on a weekly basis whatsoever. If somebody decides, hey, you know what, I'm not coming to work that day, and it was my testing day, and they choose to go on their own, then it's on them at that point. But we're gonna be offering it at no cost to our employees here.
And I believe you indicated that the testing will continue after they leave school to provide them with the ability to work during the day. And then
There's gonna be a window, a long window that starts during the school day, because they may be able to get it at lunch, they may be able to get it on prep, they may be able to get it after school, whatever it may be, just depending on how that scheduling window goes. But it'll start during the day and end after hours.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any of the board members?
No, let's move on.
All right, so we need a motion to,
So moved.
yeah.
Second.
All right, so that's, who was it, Ron? All right. Any members of the public want to talk about 164811 or 164813? What? No. Yes, Al. State your name, please.
Alva Morales, Randall Third. Are you concerned with the personnel that they might not want to follow that policy? No pushback? Okay.
I'm not concerned with it.
Thank you.
And it's mandated.
No, I
They have
know,
to,
but I
no,
know-
I haven't received it.
I know in New York, they were having some issues, so. Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to call the roll. Mr. Spindell?
Yes.
Mr. Santana?
Yes.
Mr. Barbarulo?
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg? Ms. Quackenbush?
Yes.
Mr. Aitken?
Abstain on 4A, yes on everything else.
Oh, wait a minute.
Which one?
Letter A.
4A, 1648,
I don't know if you can just, with a policy, I don't know if you can just abstain on part of it.
Yes.
Okay, all right, we'll do that. Abstain for it. All right, what's next?
We're gonna do the first reading, please.
Move that to first reading.
Go back to point 3, right?
Amy, what are we doing?
So this will be the sort of discussions of the.
The bylaws.
Exactly, it's the bylaws. and-
The one we talked,
the
0131,
bylaws, right.
0145.
And
Okay.
so the bylaws, just for the, in the first reading, the first 4 are revisions for the bylaws. And it's E and F that are new. One is remote public board meeting during a declared emergency. And then the other one is emergency, virtual or remote instruction. And for, it will require for the board to make a decision on for policy 0131, the board will have an option. And as well for 0164.
What are we on now?
We're on the first one,
0131.
Okay.
Okay. Ron, you want to say something?
Yeah, question. On those first 4, 0131, 0145, 0153, 0162, the ones that you're giving here are revised. Are these revised from what, that we're reading here from what we had, or what's the revision is what I'm
Right, so,
asking?
so the revisions, some of them unfortunately, they were revised a number of times before,
Correct.
that we missed.
Correct.
Okay, so what we've provided is what we currently have, which is the first one is what is the version that is being recommended by Strauss Esme in the provision, and then, behind it is what our current policy, was. So just for 0131, the abolishment is new. So,
Yeah, so I
the
understand.
bylaws, policies, and regulations
So-
may be abolished at any meeting. The
Yes.
board will need to make a determination whether,
So the first page, this is right after the whole list, those are the revisions.
yes,
correct?
this is the one, yes.
Okay, so then if we go back, the one on, I don't know what page it's called, but that would be like here, that's the one we have currently.
Exactly, that's the one that's currently on our website when you
Thank
go,
you.
yes.
That's all I need
Yes,
to
and that's
thank you.
great, so each one has the
Got it,
bylaws, the recommended, with the revisions, and then what we currently have.
thank you.
Mark?
Yes, can we discuss 0145, or we're still on 01?
No, we're gonna,
We don't know.
any one of the O's.
Okay, so on 0145, it's talking about removal of a person that's missing the meeting. So the question I have is, it says, I want to know who is responsible for determining without good cause? Is it the superintendent, human resource, board? Who is making that determination
The
without
board.
good cause?
It would be up to the board.
The board.
It would be up to, it'll be with a vote held by the board. So let's say you wanted me off the board, because I have been to 3 meetings. You say, I make a motion, Banter's off the board. Then I get a chance to defend myself. Well, I was in a hospital, have my leg set, in June, whatever. And then you make it, and then the board decides, well, is, a closed fracture, reason not to attend a meeting. So it'd be up to the
But it
board, not
is
the
the board.
superintendent, the
Okay,
board.
that's what I wanted to.
No, Nick doesn't want to. Anything to do with that.
No, they're strike that.
Anything else?
No, that was it.
Any other board members on any of the O's? Glad.
First, I'll make a, since Mark spoke about this policy, I'll make a brief note about the policy. In theory,
Which policy?
on the board, yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Board member removal. So in theory, the board, road board could say, oh, Jack, you're going on vacation now? Let's have a meeting on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Next week, Jack is out. But that would be unfair and rogue and not good. But we cannot change the policy because the language is set by the law. So I'm not making this suggestion because the law says what it is.
Wait, say that again? Can you repeat that again?
Okay, repeating that again. Mr. President, can you not time because
I'm not counting anybody
Thank you,
time.
thank you. So, in theory, purely in theory, a road board could do the following. They could say, oh, Jack, you're going on vacation next week? Hey guys, let's have a meeting on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday next week. And then the following, Jack is out because he missed 2 meetings. I'm not suggesting to make a change to the policy to prevent this possibility because the law says what it says and we cannot change the law. And I sincerely believe that this board will not do such a thing. Should I let you respond or continue with other comments on other policies?
Nor will Nick recommend 3 night meetings in a row.
Ron, you wanted to?
When are you going on vacation?
Just a point of information, this policy used to be that they gave the boards the option. Is it gonna be special meetings? It's actually, they recommend that it's only regular board meetings. And actually, there was a lawsuit just recently, last year, that it came about, and that's why it's regular board meetings. So you can't just say, we're gonna set up 5 meetings in a row, and then stuff, I'm just saying, you
It's
can't.
not
It's
Huh?
any meetings.
It's
It's any meeting.
Yeah, but you can change it, because there was a lawsuit, about that. They did the same thing you just said, and there's proof, it's actually even in here, 'cause I read the whole thing last year. So I'm just saying, keep that in mind.
Cindy?
I don't think you'd be able to do that because you would be in violation of advertising. The public meetings have to be advertised
Correct.
a certain, in the ways that we read in the sunshine law. So, that is strictly adhered to. The board, the meeting wouldn't be recognized if it wasn't duly advertising.
Any board members, Mark?
Yeah, I just want to clarify, I think, what Ron said. According to this, it is saying any meeting, whether it's regular, special, workshop.
But if you keep reading it, the lawsuit last year, Antoine versus Board of Ed, I read the whole thing, in the school board notes and everything else, on the whole case. They tried to remove somebody for that specific reason, and they lost. The judge ruled in favor, the Maryland judge ruled in favor of the board member, so it has to be regular.
So why are we not?
I don't know, I'm just telling you what I read.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, so why are we not
I mean, I
revising
say
this
something
to regular
sometimes,
meetings
I'm
only?
ridiculous.
We can do that.
You could change it, make it regular board.
What?
You could change it.
The case provided that it could be any meeting, so if
Okay.
you miss like a.
All right, but what I think I'm hearing is that the board would feel more comfortable if it was any regular meeting. Am I correct? So we can make it 3 consecutive regular.
No, you can't, it said actually that
The law says no.
It says you can do either one.
It says, right, if I'm reading the one here, it says, therefore Strauss estimated revised bylaw guide 0145 to remove the option provided to the board to only count regular board meetings.
To remove the option, Marlene.
Remove
To
the
count
option.
only regular
Okay.
meetings, which means
Alba, please.
All right, you know what,
Mr. President.
Mr. Santana, go ahead.
Okay, I also read, and I understand. According to the law, according to a decision from the Commission of Education, cited by the policy company, and according to a decision from NLJ, we don't have the capability to single-handedly choose which type of meeting. It's any meeting, so we don't have the prerogative of choosing.
correct.
Okay? What we do have the prerogative is what is just cause. And I think we should insert what is just cause, because no one plans to be sick. And if someone is sick, let's say like our colleague, Ms. Favelli, hardworking, dedicated school board member, is sick in the afternoon, you know, that's just cause because you're sick. You don't plan to be sick. So I would like to add that on the policy, you know, sickness and family, you know, sickness or you know, sickness or personal reasons.
Well, it says
Yeah.
unexcused. So, I mean, I think if you're sick, that's excused.
Well, we should put, if you are excused, it should be what is missing, and this is why when there's someone who's absent, it's customary for us to state, this person is absent because of this. So I think by us stating the reason the person is absent, then the board can excuse it at the meeting, yes or no. So let's say like tonight, Ms. Morelli was absent, okay? She was sick, excused.
Right.
Excused absent or unexcused absent, like in the classroom.
Right, but that's what it says, unexcused. Or,
But we should make duly notice thereof when.
how do you cover everything? How do you put in, it's impossible, there's so many things that it could be.
Well, when we take attendance, we take who's in, who's not, and then who's not. If it's excused, excused.
Yeah, Mark?
Yeah, I think that there are too many variables when you're going to be going through the list. I think it's going to be necessary for the board just to consider whether or not that particular item that person says is unexcused or excused. There's just too many variables. And I think Mr. Santana is correct. I think you really need at the beginning of the board meeting to explain why that individual is not here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike?
I think if the person wants their reason that they're not there to be said out loud, that's perfect, that's their prerogative. But I don't think Most of the time, if I miss a meeting, I don't need it, so that's why I'm not at the meeting. That's my personal life. But I personally believe that we should keep it the way it is. I really wish it was regular meetings, the way it used to be. And I think it made it a lot, you know, for someone to miss 3 regular meetings in a row, that's big. For someone to miss committee meetings, special meetings, you know, that's might be more customary of something that could happen easier. I don't think there's any reason to really start adding the reasons why they're gonna be excused or not excused, because I think as, I forgot who said it, there's so many different, I think you said it at the beginning, there's so many different things that you could be out for. You know, I was late at the last meeting because I advanced work late. But, so I think there's so many different variables that it's better, in my opinion, to just leave it as it says there, and move on to the second policy. Tonight.
And we're doing all of them, it seems.
Okay, well, or off the way, whatever. You know what I mean.
I know, some black,
I agree with Mark and Mike on this issue.
thank you, so do I. Mr. Santana.
Okay, for 0131, I would like to insert language, if you all agree, that new board members be provided with the information on how to access our bylaws. I know our bylaws are online, but, you know, with, as part of their indoctrination into the board, that new board members be provided with the information on how to access our bylaws. Does anyone have any problem with that?
I have a comment.
Mark?
Every new member is given a mentor. However, some mentors are better than others. And when the person is given that mentor, there are no guidelines regarding what that mentor should be discussing with that new board member. So I think what would behoove us is to have guidelines written up so that certain items are discussed when that new board member is elected. A checkoff list of some kind.
Or will that fall in here?
I don't think you need a bylaw for that. I think you just need the mentor to go over these, just like a new teacher. When a new teacher is indoctrinated into the school system, it's done by a mentor who's, you know, following that teacher. So if you have a guide, you'll know what to discuss. There's no need for a policy.
Glad then, Mark. I mean, Mike.
Okay, so since we're now on policy 131, I will say everything I have about this policy. First, I agree with both Wilkie and Mark. I think we should say that new board members should be made aware of policies and specifically bylaws. It is also a good idea to do a checklist for the men. Now, more about this policy. As Denise mentioned, we have 2 options here. To abolish policies on the second reading or to abolish policies right away. So I prefer the second option, which is to abolish policies right away without the second reading. Okay, more about this policy. This policy has sustained substantial changes from the current policy. There are many changes in this policy. The current policy is definitely written in before internet times, but I feel that this policy can be made even better, brought to the 21st century. It does mention internet. So on the second page, under promulgation and distribution, I suggest to insert that all policies should be available online on a publicly accessible website. I suggest to insert this sentence.
That's a law anyway.
I can give the text later if you say.
They are on.
They
They're on our website.
Yes.
I think that's the law. I think that's the law.
They're on there, why do you gotta put it in? I don't understand.
Oh,
I'm just asking a question.
because I think it's a good idea to have it.
I'm
Why
not aware.
wouldn't we have the policies online? Why wouldn't we not have the policies online?
I agree with you, we should have it online.
No, but I'm saying, why, if the superintendent decided to take them off the line, I can speak for myself as a board member, I'd question it right away. Why are you taking our policies offline? That's,
I don't know, if I may,
I don't understand why you got to put that up.
every district handles their policies very differently. Ours are online. I mean, if you put the statement in, it's just supporting what we already do here, they're online. The Charles S. Bank. So every district does it differently. Some of them have it online, some of them you have to hunt and search a little bit more than others. Ours are very easy to find. It says board policies. Put a search word in, it pops up. All our board policies are online and easily accessible. Wasn't always like that, but it is now. So our policies are there. So, yeah.
Okay, but he wants to make sure that they stay.
Yes, I want to make sure it's in the policy.
So that's, anybody have objection to that one sentence? Okay, maybe you want to put that in?
What about my request, so making sure that new board members are provided with information on how to access our bylaws and
Yes,
policies.
new board members should be made aware of the location of.
I wasn't aware of that board member.
But who is going to make them all? I mean, you need to be specific, because if somebody's
Board
like,
president,
Or board president.
board president should make sure that.
It could be amended.
Anybody, okay, Mike, I'm gonna let Mike talk and then we'll.
All right, we're going like, so what I hear is that our unofficial mentorship program that we do for new board members there should be some kind of set criteria for that. And I think that should be done, that isn't a bylaw, that isn't a policy. I think because the whole mentorship isn't a bylaw, isn't a policy, and doesn't need to be, I don't think. We have enough bylaws and policies. And I think we could work that out at another time, and us knowing that there's an issue with that, and there is. Everyone who's been a mentor, I think, does it a different way, and it also depends on the person, the mentee too. Has part of, there's a job in there too. So I don't think it has to be put in the bylaws that mentors are this, because mentors aren't in the bylaws at all, and I don't think they have to be. Okay, but I think we do need at some point we need to sit down and look at that whole issue. But I don't think it has anything to do with PO 131 or PO 145 or PO 153 or PO 162 or 164, right? Personal.
Any other board member want to make a comment on Mr. Santana's revision? No?
I have more comments about.
Oh,
this.
you're still, okay, go ahead.
Okay. So if you look at the current policy has the following stance.
Still on 0131?
Yes, yes. The current version of 0131 has the following statement. It is on second page under item 3. It says, copies of the proposed draft will be made available to staff members and the public, and comments will be invited. This sentence is removed from the proposed draft.
Where was that on our original?
On the current policy, if you look at the current policy,
Yeah.
it's second page, item 3. It's a long paragraph, and in the middle of the paragraph,
Next page.
Second sentence.
Next page.
Second sentence.
Okay.
so in the middle of the paragraph, there is a sentence. Copies of the proposed draft will be made available to staff members and the public, and comment will be invited. This sentence is removed from the proposed draft. I'm suggesting to reinstate that statement in the draft. And further, in the same kind of spirit of making things public, on the first page of the proposed policy, where we say that bylaws, policies, and regulations may be adopted and revised at any meeting of the board, I'm suggesting to insert the word at any public meeting of the board.
That's what it means. You can't do a policy in a non-public meeting. You can't have, you can't discuss a public, you can't discuss a policy, the board of the whole, without having an advertised meeting. You can't do it, it's by law.
Fine.
And you can have a committee meeting, you get 5 people, it has to be advertised, has to be held in public.
Okay, that's fine.
But the law would override anything we.
Okay, that's fine. So I still want that sentence from the current policy to go to the revised policy. The draft should be exposed to staff in public and comments invited.
I agree.
I agree. Mr.
We do, just so you know, we do, not saying that you said we don't do it, but we know we do that. We share it with staff, public and everything. It's just not, it didn't carry over to the new.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're not doing it.
No, that's why I just wanted to clarify.
Wait, did you talk already? Did you?
No, I was just gonna talk about the option, but
Okay, so are we okay then to put that sentence back in?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, put it in.
What about the option? Do you have to do something for that?
Yeah, the options, okay. Oh, same thing as earlier, okay. Oh, you want to talk about the options?
Right. I think the second option, we should be able to, propose abolishing of the proposed bylaw, policy, or regulation being approved by the board at previous meeting of the board.
I agree too, whether you can abolish it, whether we get the.
Right.
Sure.
If it's being abolished, it should be abolished at, that's fine.
Okay, so how does the board feel? Do we want option 1 or option 2? 2? Option 2, okay, option 2. Vlad, you were done, right?
Yes, with this policy.
Okay. Looks like we're done with 0131. 0145, I think we worked on that, right? That was, anybody else have any 0145 questions, comments?
I just would like to know if you know, like in the classroom, when there's a roll call, you know, absent, excuse absent. If a board is sick or attends a funeral, or is absent because it's a religious day, I think that should be duly noted as just cause for when we are having a meeting and there is an attendance, a roll call, you know. And I think we should do that. And I know the other side is, well, that's gonna be a burden, that's gonna take time, but we already do a roll call, number 1. And 2, we don't have board members abusing their absences, you know? And I think it would go a long way, and it would be like an olive branch to those who may have personal reasons in their absence. Because we have, you know, I think Ms. Mahan stated something about about the attendance, and you know, I know Ms. Favela was worried about being absent. She was more worried about being absent than her health. So I don't want any board member feeling that they are not being a good board member because they have a reason beyond their control that prevents them from being here. I think if we take a roll call, anyways, for any meeting, if you know that person, you know, that was let's say a Jewish holiday, or that was the person was sick, or you know, just note it. Absent, good cause. GC, good cause. That's it. You know? That doesn't hurt me, doesn't take nothing away from us. Are you in favor of that?
Sandy, then Mark.
I don't, if I have a problem where I'm not attending a meeting, it goes to the board president. I confer with the board president as a board member, no matter who the board president is. And if it's something that I don't want publicly made, that I'm not attending this meeting, if I'm telling the board president that I can't be at the meeting, he will know the reason, but it doesn't have to be announced publicly.
Okay, the question is, oh, Mark, I'm sorry.
I'm in agreement with Cindy. However, I think to clarify it a little further, we know that when we're going to be absent, we must notify the board president and superintendent. So in that correspondence, all we need to put down is absent for whatever, please do not announce, or it's okay to announce. And that would clarify whether or not it be announced. However, if you don't announce it, and you're out 3 times, there's going to be a possible hesitation amongst the board to vote for your being in rather than withdrawing from the board, because they don't know what that reason is. So it's like you catch 22. But everybody does have the right to say that I don't want my,
I'm
make
gonna
it work.
piggyback on that. If the board would be making that decision to remove a board member, is that held in private or public?
I have no idea.
I
It's never
think
come
it's
up.
held
Right.
in public because the person has a right to defend him or herself.
I don't want
think
to
it was in
speculate,
the-
I don't know.
No, I think it was in the regulation.
It might be, but I don't know off the top of my head.
But
Ms. Santana, hold on. All right, anybody else want to say something on Mr. Santana's suggestion that we list what is a good cause? How many board members would like the administration to come up with, the administration come up with a list of things that are good cause and put it into the policy? How many people are for that? Then you're shaking your head no, but did I misunderstand?
no, I never spoke about administration coming up with anything. This is a board of education business, not the administration. So this has nothing to do with administration. What I said was, a board member is absent. The absentee is recorded. It's public business. Okay? If you are absent, it's public business. What I'm saying is, it is. What if the board president? I'm not saying you. What if any board president doesn't record that as a just cause absent? And they go by the book and say, oh, 3 absences. That's it. We vote, we're out the board. This is a good check and balance. And remember, power is a big deal. If you have the power as a board president, to put things on the agenda, and you don't want to acknowledge something as a just cause, we could lose a valuable member of the board.
Well, let me just say this, that the board president does not decide what is good cause, all right? Now, the board president may have an opinion about what is good cause. The board president doesn't decide that. If you miss 3 meetings and I say Mr. Santana has to go because I don't like the 3 causes that he didn't come, you come and say, wait a minute, I was getting an operation, or I was on vacation with my family, we got stuck on an island because we couldn't get a plane. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. The board president doesn't make that decision.
But all of that is reactive. What I'm saying is being proactive. If we already record the attendance, why not record that is an excuse absent? And like Ms. Quackenbush stated, if the board president have to be informed, then the board president will know it was excused. And then the board president makes that duly noted via the board secretary.
Ron wants to say something, and then Mike, and then we're going to wrap this one up.
I understand what you're saying, Mr. Santana. Bottom line is, anytime you're missing a meeting, I missed a meeting in August, I was on vacation, I notified the superintendent and the board president. As Cindy stated, I don't want people to know why. Many years ago, I had back surgery. I missed 4 meetings. I actually was on the phone for 2 of them after my surgery. And I spoke to the superintendent and the board president and said that I had no problem letting the public know that I had back surgery. That was my decision. Maybe I don't want that. Again, I'm gonna just tell you one thing. This is a good bylaw to have. You can go do some research. Trying to get rid of a board member, it's just like tenure charges, okay, with teachers. It's not easy. And I recommend that a board better have real good reasons because you're spending a lot of money. And you're not gonna win 90% of the time. You can look at a lot of the cases. So you wanna put it in, that's fine. I don't think you need it. I think you just move on, that's it. If somebody says, hey, I'm not gonna be here tonight, I gotta do something, or like I teach, but I always work my schedule around the board meetings. Because as far as religious holidays, we never have it at respect of every board member for their religious holidays. We cancel the meetings. I just don't think it's needed. If you want to put it in, I have no problem with it, but I just don't think it's needed. That's my personal opinion.
Mike?
real quick, I don't want to belabor this more. As Gene said, it isn't his decision on what's a legitimate reason. We've already said that we weren't going to list the reasons because there could be many reasons, and even the reasons could be case specific, in my opinion. Now, no matter what, if someone misses 3 meetings, a board member could bring up someone that they missed 3 meetings, and then the whole board would have to decide whether the meetings were legitimately missed or not, regardless of what the president or superintendent said. Superintendent, you're correct, wouldn't have anything to say about it. But whatever the president says, the president doesn't decide that. It's going to be the whole board. So I think this whole conversation is just belaboring. It's typical belaboring of what we have to do, because it's easy. You know, the whole board has to vote to remove someone and decide what just cause was. So, and that's not going to happen unless someone misses 3 meetings in a row. And I don't even remember the last time that happened, except maybe if someone had an illness, but he didn't even miss 3 meetings by his own admission because he was too on the phone. So,
Let's take a vote.
Take a vote. Okay, how many people would like to have a list of reasons in the bylaw?
That's not what I stated. I didn't state a list of reasons.
Then what do you want? I don't get it.
That the just cause be reported while taking attendance for the meeting.
Okay, okay. Do we want, when somebody's not at a meeting, do we want the president to announce, based on that person's preference, why the person has missed the meeting and whether it's excused?
Just if it's just cause or not. That's it.
no, it can't be.
Okay, well that's
Nobody determines just cause.
okay. All right. So, how many people want that in this policy? Okay. Sorry, Mr. Okay. Oh, 0162, notice of board meetings.
No, 0153.
Oh, 0153, annual appointments. Glad.
Okay, maybe it's my simple misunderstanding. The way I understood what Tom Sesame wrote is that the appointment of the treasurer is optional. That's the reason to change the policy. The appointment of everybody else is not optional. But now the way it is, it says the Board of Education may, and may references the whole thing, all 10 of them. So don't we want to say may only for the treasurer and shall for everybody else?
Denise, you have any comment on that?
Their recommendation is to put the Board of Education may annually appoint the following positions.
So they're all optional?
Well, yeah,
So it's different between shall and may.
right.
All right, why don't you talk to John, somebody
Okay.
about,
Yeah, I mean, we've already, the former policy, we had already appointed, we had already agreed to may appoint the exact same. The only difference in this one is that, the treasurer of school monies is number 2, and it was placed as number 8, just because of the way they rewrote, that Strauss rewrote the policy, but that's it. We had already made those appointments.
What's the point of revising?
yeah, I don't really, know whether it's pretty much exactly the same. So it's like 8 extra words.
Let's give you the date.
The only, the only option that had been on, when the policy first came out, was that you may choose, just as an option, a treasurer of school monies or assistant board secretary. And we had already chosen a treasurer of school monies, and so it's, when they revised it, it was just number 8, we had done number 2. And
Can I say something?
Look, you got it.
Since the state law says the treasurer of school monies is an optional position. I suggest that in parentheses, next to number 8, we insert optional pursuant,
Just optional.
optional, just optional, right?
It says may. Well, it says may, it does not say shall.
We don't have to appoint a treasurer of school monies. I thought that was state law. You have to appoint treasurer of school monies.
It says here may.
Oh, I know it says there, but
There's a state law here that says it's optional. So in our bylaw, it should say optional as well, because it's,
all right. Is everybody okay with putting optional next to treasurer of
I
school
want
monies?
to know where it says.
I don't know where you, Mark, go
When
ahead.
it says may, does it mean that this individual can continue his job as treasurer of school monies year after year after year without being appointed?
No.
That is not how it's being read when it says may, for each one annually. Could it be read that way, that you don't have to select a new treasurer every year? Just
No.
continue on?
they have to be reappointed.
You have to appoint them every year.
They have to be reappointed, even if you're not selecting them, they have to be reappointed. It's like the textbook, they have to be adopted.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, of the requirements is that all of the 10 positions, 9 are mandatory and 1 is optional. So in my opinion, we want to put the word shall at the top and then treasurer in parentheses optional. Maybe it's a question for John to make.
I think it is,
Yes,
because
it probably is.
I have a different recollection of treasurer of school monies. You have to have it. So, all right, so
We'll find out.
we'll find out from John, and then if it's what Vlad thinks and Wilkin thinks, then we'll name him out, shall and may, all right?
But we'll move it forward.
Yeah.
We're not gonna leave it
Right,
right
we're not
back.
gonna,
We'll
no.
email the board, we'll let you know.
Cindy?
Just a point of information, the treasurer of school money is listed in the annual audit report every year, so that's part of. what we
That's
want.
why I say, I don't know how.
Right,
get
but
around-
I'm
But
not
we'll
sure
find out.
why it's optional, but there is a place for the treasurer of school money right in the beginning of the audit.
Yeah, we've been doing it for 50-something years, so,
Well, not quite 50, but 30.
not me, the
Yeah, I know-
board.
I know what it says, I'm just saying
Okay.
in the audit
All right,
report.
0153, we done?
it's-
0162, notice of board meetings. Denise, you wanna just give us a quick rundown?
Certainly.
I have a question.
What's the question?
Okay, the first paragraph, it says, the board secretary shall notify in writing and no later than 48 hours in advance of the meeting, each board member and each person who has duly requested such notification of the time, date, location, and to the extent it is known, the agenda of any regular, special, or rescheduled meeting. Does that mean that if a member of the public emails the board secretary and said, I would like to be notified of each board, I would like to be notified about each board meeting, that means the board secretary have to reach out to that person and let them know at least 48 days in advance? 48 hours in advance?
How do you read that?
That's how I'm reading.
So for policy 0162, the only difference from our policy that we had previously adopted and the new one is just the citation. That's it. On
No, I
NJAC,
understand.
That's it. Everything else is remained the same.
No, I understand, but I'm saying, you know, the way I'm reading it is, the board secretary must notify in writing, no later than 48 hours, to any board member or you know, to any board member or a person who requests notification of a meeting. So if Johnny,
I'm reading it the same way you said.
if Johnny, my
It doesn't make
neighbor,
sense.
emails the board secretary
It
and
doesn't
says,
make sense.
I would like to be notified of every board meeting in advance. That means the board secretary is gonna have to send that particular neighbor a written communication. We have a meeting. You understand what I'm saying?
That is what it says. I don't think there's any way to read it any other way.
So what if you just, the recommendation could be each board member and the community, such notification? Because that's what we do, is we, 48 hours ahead of time.
Keep reading.
Board
Keep reading.
Board secretary shall notify in writing,
No,
and no later than 48 hours in advance of the meeting, each board member and the community, such notification of time, date, location, and to the extent it is known, an agenda of any regular, special, or rescheduled meeting. We do that 48 hours ahead of time. It's always put, we advertise, it's in the public library, it's on our website, the community is notified, the board members are
But it's not
notified.
asking that, it's asking for requested notification.
I'm saying take that part out.
Yeah, yeah.
And say, take out, and each person who has duly requested. Take that out, it's stating that your notice of board meetings, you're notifying the board meetings. You just take that sentence out, those words out,
And we have need for you email.
and the community, and insert, and the community. Because we're always notifying the board and the community 48 hours ahead of time.
And the exception is unless those meetings have already been published in the annual list. So if the meeting is happening at a date other than the annual list, that's when this kicks in.
No, because that's already well above 48 hours, so there's no later than 48 hours. You can't do
Really
it,
for a special meeting.
I can't just call a meeting like tomorrow. If I was like, hey, we need to have a meeting tomorrow, I can't. I have to give 48 hours notice.
I agree with this, we just have to make sure that this specific language is not in the law.
Okay. Now you got that all, Denise? I'm gonna give it to the public in a minute. Any of the board members on 0162?
Just I agree.
What?
Just I agree.
Oh, 0164.6. Denise, this has to do with, if we ever go back to virtual, okay?
Yes, yep. And it's really great for really for an emergency situation.
It's mandatory.
Board members, questions, comments on 164.6?
Believe me, so we'll have choices.
Okay.
One, two, four choices.
Glad.
Let's remove the phrase or board of trustees of charter school.
What was
Where
that?
are you?
Remove what? What was that?
Remove the phrase.
A1.
Yeah, A1, and it's in another place, it's in two places here.
Remove what?
Remove the phrase
No,
or
you just-
board
that's
of
just quoting
trustees of
statute,
charter
though.
school.
It's just quoting statute.
Oh, okay, all right.
That's all it is. It's not, nobody's showing us charter stuff.
Saying the reasons for it.
I apologize. I'm sorry. I want to go back for a second to 0131.
Oh, 131?
I thought we were doing that one.
Did we decide or did we not decide that every new employee and new board member should be made aware how to locate policies and bylaws online? Did we decide to put it in here or not?
No, we decided not to.
Is it not?
So that's for another,
I thought that was gonna be put into the mentor
but
booklet.
we said that's for, not
Yeah.
for that policy, for
We,
something else.
you know, we're gonna come up with some kind of a mentorship policy.
And on the same policy question, the policy says that the master copy of all the policies should be located in the office of the director of HR.
There it is.
We have it, right?
Right, so the master, the final adopted policy will always go on our website. And then we maintain a copy in a binder, okay, of that. And then what occurs is once a policy is abolished, we actually print out the policy before we remove it from the website. We put that in the booklet so that we can follow the pattern of any revisions. And then it comes down. Okay, so the four policies that we essentially abolished tonight on the second reading, before I remove those, we copy them, put them in the binder, eventually become digitized. And then that way we have the record.
Okay.
Welcome.
Okay, for four of 11, I propose shall not. I think it's redundant. If there is a public comment You are,
Which one were you talking about now?
we are on back to 0164.6.
Right, but you said,
Where are you? Sorry.
where are you?
The one, the choice that we have to make.
Number 2?
2B.
Okay, thank you.
It should be, in my opinion, it should be shall not. If you have a public portion, it should be common sense that the public will speak. So you don't have to ask the public if they want to speak. If there's a public comment, you should speak.
If you don't mind, if you remember when we did our meetings on Zoom last year, there was the waiting room, where there was people, public participants who were there, and we would say, raise your hand if you want to speak. So the hand pops up next to it, so we know that you want to speak, that you're not just sitting there in the meeting. So it actually, there really is a hand feature, so we know. Otherwise, there's like 80 people in a room or 200 people in a room. It looks like 200 people are waiting to speak, but really we say, raise your hand now if you want to speak, and then all the hands, we know that's who's going to speak when we're running the meeting.
From an efficiency standpoint, we shouldn't mandate the person running the meeting to, if we have people here and the public portion comes up, anybody who wishes to speak, speak. But
it's a remote, it's they're at home. If we go back to remote meetings and they're at home, we can't see them, we don't know. We don't know that they want to speak. So you actually raise your hand so that we know that you want to speak because you're at home. How could I wouldn't be able to tell if Ms. Fialovich is home right now, and she was part of the meeting, I wouldn't know that she would want to speak, but if the hand goes up, then we know that she wants to speak.
okay, I understand.
Okay, so to be shall.
So,
Okay, 6. Glad?
Just to note that this shall or shall not, which we have decided, refers not only to people expressing their wish to speak, but also to people mandating them to state their name, to identify themselves.
Right. And I have no problem with people stating their name. I don't want addresses, but I want to know people's names, and that's required under the bylaws. Okay, no, that's fine, we're gonna,
I want to give priority to Furlong residents. If we have 100 people waiting, and
You can't do that.
you can't put your neighbors
Legally,
first,
you cannot.
what if we have
No, you
a whole bunch
cannot.
of people from out of town that want to speak?
No, you can't.
You can't put your neighbors first?
No.
I don't think so.
So,
Anybody that comes to that meeting from anywhere is allowed to speak.
It came up at the Bergen County meeting,
For-
and it came up at another meeting too that I went to.
for 6A, I propose adding board secretary. That's what every board member, every board of education does.
Denise and I went through these ahead of time, and we said the same thing. Board secretary.
Okay.
And if it's electronic, we should accept text-based public comment.
So we're doing it in the form of Google is text. We're considering the way that we're doing Google is text. Anything internet-based, we were saying falls under like the text field, we were saying.
And for 6C,
So accept.
the other public body that we have in town, the council, they allow 5 minutes, I believe. So, we are the biggest share of the taxes people pay, and I'm not comfortable giving people just 3 minutes to speak. I think 5 minutes is, I will make it 6 minutes. I will give an extra minute, because, people need to speak and let them express how they feel about our educational community. I will add 6 minutes. I will give an extra minute because of all the crises we have been living under because of, Oh, I can look at the public when I speak. Now you're gonna tell me who's
All right, that's all right. So you're suggesting 6 minutes?
I'm suggesting 6 minutes.
Okay. Anybody here wants 6 minutes besides Mr. Santana? Okay.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So you're 5 minutes.
You guys don't want 5 minutes?
Nobody wants to hear a public speak. Did I raise my hand? Here's a problem. I'll tell you what my problem is this, all right? The public portion of the meeting, the comment portion of the public meetings, generally 30 minutes. So if you give everybody 5 or 6 minutes, that cuts down on the number of people that can speak. Whereas if you give somebody 3 minutes and they finish and they invariably run over. Everybody knows that, you know, the 3-minute comes, and it might be 30 seconds, it might be another minute. So now we're at 4 minutes, we're trying to keep the public portion to a reasonable amount of time. Now you've got 5 people for 6 minutes, or you can have 10 people for 3 minutes. So to me, that's a little bit more fair. And then if there's not enough people, and I've done this before, and other board presidents have done this before, that if 4 people speak for 3 minutes and there's still time, all right, you didn't get to finish speaking, or you want to say something else, I'll give you another 3 minutes. So to me, it seems more democratic to give more people more time and then come back to the people if there is time, as opposed to, I'm sorry, 6 people took up most of the time, so we can't do it. So 3 or 4 minutes. Yes.
I just wanted to say that normally, under circumstances, if there's not that many people in the audience, the board president, no matter who he is, who the person is, has given what's the word?
Leeway.
Leeway, thank you. Leeway to what the public is talking about. In very contentious situations, which we have had, we've just sat there, the board president had said, we have an extremely long line of people that want to speak. We are going to hear from every single one of those people. We just ask that if somebody said something before, that you don't repeat it so that we can keep it going. Again, it's the leeway of the president and the topic of the conversation that they're talking about at the time. He's not trying to limit the public. You have to make a decision by 50 people in the audience or 2 people in the audience. And I think that we have done that in the past. In the board president, in the past, has given leeway to make sure that every member of the public is heard.
Mike?
I think that no one wants to limit the public to speak on causes and to tell their comments to the Board of Education. No one's ever done that, and I don't think it will ever happen. I agree with that there needs to be a limit so that more people could speak, especially at contentious meetings. Because when there is a contentious meeting, and I've been here for certain things that have happened way before, a lot longer than this, than the past couple of years, when the public is upset about something, they come out and the room is full. And they all want to speak. So if you say 3 minutes or 4 minutes, and there's time more, I agree. The presidents have always been given leeway to that. I did it when I was president, Ron did it when he was president. I'm sorry to speak for him. I did it when I was president, and I know that others have too. So there's nothing nefarious going on here.
Mr. Santana?
With all due respect, my comment was not from a nefarious point of view. It was from, the more we hear from the public, the better. Just because we have 50 people in the audience, that doesn't mean we don't have 50 speakers. That's a fact. Now, people in this, the taxpayer pays 64 cents of every dollar to the school board. I'm not comfortable limiting how much people can speak, to lower it to 3 minutes. Now, just as a point of information, our current policy, this is for a meeting during a declared emergency. Just as a point of information, but our current policy does not limit the amount of time, contrary to past practice, does not limit how long can the public speak, unless the meeting the public portion could go over 30 minutes, which at that point, according to the policy, gives the board president the right to, it gives the board president the right, so he may limit the speech to, I think, 3 or 5 minutes. But right now, for regular meetings under non-declared emergency, there is no 3 or 5 minutes. So, and now to limit it to 3 minutes, you're paying $18,000 in taxes, $16,000 for your property, and you come to a meeting. You don't come to a meeting and say, let me come to a meeting that's gonna be controversial. They might just come because they have an issue with the food at the elementary school and they just wanna say it. So why blame, the average Joe because that happens to be a controversial meeting? And remember, put yourself in the taxpayer. Well, I don't know how many.
We are.
Oh, okay, let me rephrase. I don't know how many people on the board are property owners. But if you are a property owner, I don't know how, I cannot assume everybody here is a property owner. But if you are a property owner in Fairwood, and you're paying $16,000 in taxes, and you come to a board meeting because you want to see, I don't know, more fruits and vegetables, and that happened to be a contentious meeting, why are you going to limit it to 3 minutes to that person? I don't think it's fair. And it limits freedom of speech. It limits freedom of speech. And I'm not for limiting freedom of speech, especially as an ongoing board member finishing his 3-year term. We should want more speech, not less speech.
Okay, all right, we understand where you're coming from. So, 6 minutes got no. Oh, sorry, Ron, I didn't see you. I'm sitting right next to you, too.
No, listen, I understand what you're saying, but let's be honest. If you're gonna speak, speak on the topic. We've had people speak at the remote meetings that went on for 6 to 7 minutes and didn't speak about one thing about the Board of Education. We heard about their whole life, okay? That's not fair to the public that's there, that's not fair to the board members that are here also, okay, and the administration. So I have no problem, you want somebody to speak 5 minutes, I have no problem. Speak your piece. You're not here to just get on a soapbox. Not saying you, I'm saying anybody in the public. If you have a problem with the food, you have a problem with curriculum, you have a problem with anything in the district, come and speak. I agree with you 1,000%. Everybody has a right, they pay taxes, everything. But don't take the time up from other people that want to speak because you want to just speak about what's going on in your life and everything else, and then we have to add more minutes for them to speak. That's not fair to the other people that are there. So if you want to do it that way, then you got to do it fairly, and everybody gets their 5 minutes, whatever you want to do. I have no problem with that. But again, as the president, according to Robert's rules, they have a right to cut that person off because you're off topic. And then you get other people saying, oh, no, let them speak. No, stay on topic, speak what you want to speak, and let's move on with the meeting. That's it. That's how efficient meetings are run. This way you're not there till midnight and everybody gets a chance to speak. Trust me, I've run organizations where we've had 50 people speaking, and we got all 50 people in 5 minutes because everybody just spoke on the topic. So as long as everybody stays on the topic, in 5 minutes, I have no problem. But if it doesn't, then we have to.
So we just have to make sure the board president is doing his or her job.
We've seen that, and he was shut down, the board president.
Okay,
so
all right, that doesn't matter.
Let's not go there.
Okay. So, are we here? All right, so 5 minutes. What?
3, 4, 5.
Okay, 5 minutes, raise your hands. Let's just do it, fine, 5 minutes. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay. 5 minutes, within 5 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you're off topic, you stop.
All right. Anything else on 0164.6? Are there any other decisions we have to make, choices? Column A, column B? I don't think so. Okay, board members, anything else on this one? Okay, I'm going to ask the public if they'd like to speak on 0131, 0145, 0153, 0162, or 0164.6. Okay, Mrs. Yorman, Alba, the gentleman in the back, and the gentleman over there.
I forgot 24, 25.
What?
The last one you mentioned, policy 24, 25.
So I didn't print out a couple of these, so I'm gonna just ask the question, and the first couple are easy ones. So 0153, I didn't see auditor listed under 0153. Because I had 0145, but I'm thinking it's under 0153, so I put the wrong.
We're gonna get,
That's the order.
That's the order. It's on there? Oh, I'm sorry, I may have missed it. 0162. Being that we're in the 21st century, can we, on the Fair Lawn Schools page, announce upcoming meetings? Like
We do.
Like a week of? I see a lot of the board members put in, don't forget, this is what it is. I don't really see it on
But-
the,
It's on our website.
It's on the website.
We always
no,
do.
I'm saying on social media.
Oh, on social, well,
Yeah.
not, you can put it on Facebook page.
We have a district social media page?
Yep.
Yeah, we have a
We have-
district Facebook page. That's fine, that's fine.
No.
What?
Policy or we just have it?
No, not yet for the policy.
Oh,
No, it's just the recommendation.
It's just a recommendation. No, we're not gonna get to the policy, but it's not a bad idea.
Can we take it to the personnel committee?
No,
No, we have,
I'm
there's
listening to
somebody
public right now.
that, there's somebody that's hired to do that kind of stuff anyway, so might as well use them. And then I just have a couple questions, some have been addressed on the 0131. So, as I was trying to keep track of some of the changes, let's go to the updated one. So it says a proposed draft will be referred to the superintendent and at the direction of the board president and as appropriate to the subject to the board committee. But in
Just tell me where you're reading from.
number 3, it's related to the 0131, just
Okay.
that number 3. So, I think you had made the board had made a determination that it's gonna be the committee of the whole, and being that policies are driven, or the board has 2 roles, which is policy and then supervising the superintendent of schools, so I don't think that it should be referred to the superintendent and then back up to the board. I think the board should make policy. And then anything that's taken out in the old one should go into the new one. That's what I'm recommending, but I'm on the no end, so.
Okay,
And that's it.
okay, thank you. Alba?
So, I find the way the new policies are presented is a little inefficient.
Is what?
A little inefficient.
Okay.
I think, I don't know, Ms. Hyde, if it's possible to,
Please direct your comments to the chair, Alba.
Mr. Banton,
Thank you.
if Ms. Hyde could color code what's the law and cannot be changed, because I just went to a couple of other districts with that language about whoever requested it, they all have it. So my guess is it's in the law. So instead of changing nilly-willy, what you cannot change, if it's color coded, this is the law and cannot be changed, now the board members can make an informed decision of what parts of the policy are you allowed to change and what not. The other thing is, in other boards, when we change board policies or bylaws, we use redlining to make sure that you know what's changing in the policy. So, for example, one of the policies was just where the treasurer was listed is the only change on that policy. It should be highlighted to whoever is reading it. So again, the board member knows what's the change from the previous policy to the new policy, and then you can have, again, more informed and better decision making. Thank you.
Just to that point, unfortunately, and I explained this earlier, it wasn't possible, because some of these weren't updated, and they may have changed 2 different times, and we're getting to an end. So if it was updated, so you're striking it, but which one are you striking? The first one, the second one? So because there may have been several changes made to it already. So if you had a policy, some of these policies are 2005, so there may have been a change that wasn't adopted. So now, what are you striking from?
You strike from the last policy that was adopted.
Okay, we're not gonna go back to it.
Right?
It goes a rhetorical question, right?
Okay, and then, Wilkin is not here, but there is already a policy, 0144, that says board member orientation and training, where it says that any new board member should get the bylaw. So that's already a bylaw that you have. You don't need to put it in any new bylaw, it's already a bylaw, just so you know. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Gentleman in the back, can you state your name for the record, please?
Sergei Shevchuk.
Thank you.
With respect to everyone's time, I will be to the point. It is my suggestion to actually, in this time, as we experienced during the last 1.5 years, that Zoom meetings are very efficient. So when board member is sick or has a valid reason to be absent, why not to allow the sick member to actually, if he is wishing, to exert himself and still participate in the meeting through Zoom, with exception that if it's a closed session, the remotely participating board member has to state for the board that no one is present in the room because it's a closed session, and they should really keep themselves isolated from anyone else walking into the room, and that will solve. It will actually contribute to the whole work of the board. And people, this will relate to the board member resignation and removal. There will be much less situations when people are missing at the meeting. So, and by the way, it is very unfortunate that Rita Favilevich was not allowed to participate remotely today for the same reason I just explained. I think it's very reasonable to really utilize available technology to engage the sick members if they are being sick, willing to participate. And the last comment, not every meeting, I know you guys, first of all, I want to thank every board member because you are putting a lot of effort and a lot of time from your families, and thank you very much for doing this. However, when there is an important policy meeting and actually members of the public are present, I think 30 minutes, which actually becomes like a squeeze time, and because of that, as President noticed, that there was the whole discussion, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. I would personally suggest to consider either 45 minutes limit or 1 hour. It will not happen all the time. It will be very rarely that people of the public speak. And considering everything else what was discussed, that people need to speak to the point and be concise, that should work very well, allowing more people to express their ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, just state your name and tell me what you want to say.
Or the board can address me as sir or Mr. Fairlawn resident. So, I'd like to address Mr. Santana's point regarding the minutes allowable to speak about any particular topic. In my opinion, it's rather unnecessary because Mr. Barbarulo pointed out that a person, a member of the public, should be on point and efficient and stay on topic. Most people, I would say reasonable people, members of Fairlawn, come to these meetings in order to do exactly that, share their opinions and thoughts, and can be concise. And rarely, you have more experience than I do people talk more than a minute or two. The instances of people talking and talking and talking, Mr. Barbarulo pointed out that the board president has the ability to interrupt that person and cut that person short. So the mere the idea that a board entertains a minute restriction is counterproductive to public participation and their view of the board as a whole. You should support the idea of more people participating and sharing and eliminating a minute requirement, 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. entirely, never mind 45 minutes to an hour, sends the public the right message.
Thank you. Anything else, sir?
I had a question for the board regarding every board meeting. In this day and age, is it a possibility to have every board meeting, being that the public can show up, virtual as well, not just under emergency circumstances, so that again, the board is signaling to the public, and maybe in the beginning you would have more participation, but over time, it's my experience that once you show that you're open, completely open to the public's exchange back and forth, that those numbers would drop consistently. People raising their hand in a virtual meeting. In this day and age, I think every board meeting should be virtual and allow people to be present in person.
I support it.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Thank you. So we're gonna move, Vlad, I told the board we're done, but okay.
I wanted to mention a few other zero policies that we discussed today. First, just a question. Table of contents, policy 0000. Is it a policy by itself? Should it be approved like any other policy, or how does it work?
Table of contents is just table of contents.
If you look on the website, just by the man who's written it appears to be a policy by itself. Is it not? I don't know, it's a sincere question. I know that's.
No, it's just, correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, but I don't know what it says on the
Referring to this.
Yes, if you put
0000, it's not a policy.
I have it here if you wanna see it.
I can see that for.
Table of contents.
Oh, yeah, I see. No, that's not.
It's not a policy.
No, it's just the number, starting number.
So and now we're abolishing some policies, the table of contents gets changed automatically, we don't have to approve.
Right.
Okay. Then we still have policy 0155, committees, which we started revising a long time ago, we kind of dropped it. And Mr. Assessment didn't want to change it because they probably think that we still have all these 25 committees. But that policy is obsolete, just went back, we don't have these policies. So we should bring it back and discuss it.
Right.
0155 committees.
Yeah. All right, so you don't have to talk. There's a few that are hanging out there. We started, and like Nick said, we started them and they got hung up somewhere. We have to get back to it.
We have to have the whole discussion about committees in general first, I think, before we change that.
Yeah, so is that a policy committee or is that a work session? But
Or is it a
yeah,
work
the whole
session
committee
or-
structure has to be redone.
Before we change that policy that you're talking about, we should talk about the whole committee structure, because that's what we want to do.
Alternatively, we could remove the list of committees from the policy.
Can I say something?
Yes.
I think what Mr. Itkin is trying to say is, don't leave for tomorrow what you could do today. If we wait for another change that we need to do, then we're going to neglect updating something that it's already out today. Like our current committee as they are today, they're not correctly and factually shown on the current policy. So I understand the board have to have a discussion about our committee structure, but I think what Mr. Iskin is saying, why don't we take care of that policy so it reflect our current committee composition? Isn't that what you're saying?
Not quite. I'm saying this policy should be brought back to the discussion, we should either change it to its current committees or remove the listing. It's just something that we should not forget and just do it next time we meet.
Yeah, update it or remove the committee.
Okay.
Just a point of information, exactly, you're correct. When we did revise it after Matt Lee, our school board's rep told us that we have way too many committees. And you look at a lot of districts, they was correct. No, I'm just saying, we did revise, we had a work session on it before you did, we did revise it. We did neglect to go back there and adjust it, so we have to look at, we have to adjust that, but we also, I think a work session is the best way to discuss the committees. It has to be a separate work session.
Cindy.
And that's the reason why we discussed that information at the board retreat. So
Yep.
then we could now come back, like we said we were gonna do, but we said we needed the board retreat first, and now we've had the board retreat, so now we would visit for discussion and take care of the policy at that time.
I Yes, sir. One last but not least topic, policy 0167, public participation in board meetings. We started discussing it back in July. So in July, we had somewhat of a heated discussion about this policy. I'm not suggesting to discuss it now, but we should definitely discuss it, and the sooner the better. The suggestions expressed in July were to not let public participate remotely at all, or let public participate via Google form, or let public participate by phone or by Zoom. These are just suggestions that were expressed at that time. And at that time in July, the board decided that we'll let the public participate only via Google form, and we'll explore other possibilities such as phone. But I think that exploration kind of didn't happen, and we need to bring it back. And also at the time, the board president insisted that this Google form or whatever participation should be done only for the regular monthly meetings and not for any other meetings. I think that point should also be brought back to be discussed. Not necessarily right now, but sometime soon.
I agree, we have to discuss it. I think everybody agrees that we got stuck last time, and you're right, it did get a little heated, so we should bring that up again.
Aren't we doing that anyways? Like whatever policies, bylaws policies we don't get to today, we'll get to, they will be included at the next
Yeah, but
policy.
but the ones that are here are not necessarily ones that we've been discussing. These are ones that Strauss Esme said we gotta do something
Okay.
with. Some of the policies we wanna go over, they said are fine, but we wanna change them.
Okay.
So that's gotta be part of it. at some point. Any other board comments, questions?
Which one?
Oh, yeah, I know, well, I'm not doing that. Okay, now, there's one other thing, Mr. Santana, you had two policies, they're on the last back end here.
Okay, point of information. Don't we have to vote
We have to
on?
vote on that.
We have to vote first?
Oh, yeah, for the first reading, okay. All right, can I have a motion to
So moved.
the
Second.
first reading for those policies? That's all right. All in favor?
But there's,
Aye.
right, the one we're gonna go through with the first reading, right, there was one that you were just gonna get back to us on something, right?
Shall or may?
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll change that.
Thank you.
All right, so all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. All right, then the last two policies were 3211 and 3281. Mrs. Santana, I just want to say that these policies were reviewed by Strauss Esme. They were not any policies that they believed we had to redo, but Mrs. Santana, you want to talk about them, so I'll give you the first shot.
Yes, I wanted to, actually, let me just respectfully restate that. I didn't want to talk about it, I wanted us to talk about it. Because part of our mandate or our main duty is to work together for policy. So I wanted to bring this up so we can do right by our children, our staff, and the interests of the district. So the first thing I did was I did a little bit of research, okay, and I saw that nearby districts like Weinberg and Richfield have those similar policies, okay, Code of Ethics 3211 and inappropriate staff conduct 3281, and these are very antiquated policies. I literally looked at our policy, which was the first one, Code of Ethics, last updated 2006, and the inappropriate staff conduct last updated April 13th. I compare it with Glen Rock and Richmond, and they literally almost word for word. And I looked at it, and I know you had access to it. They are very genetic. They're very. I don't think they are meeting our current needs. So what I did was I did further research, and I contacted New Jersey School Board Association, Mr. Lee, who got me in touch with the policy director, and those are the policies that they recommend. They are very thorough. Those policies were emailed to the board, and pursuant to best practice and what I'm supposed to do, I requested from the board president to send these policies to our director of HR, because she's in charge of policy, and the board attorney. So I hope you got time to read them. The first one was staff conduct with students. It has what is appropriate staff behavior. This was emailed to the entire board.
I just want to point out that we emailed Saturday morning, so
No,
if we're not ready to discuss it, I got it 11:30 Saturday morning.
I said that on Friday.
Okay, well, I didn't get it Saturday morning.
No, I understand.
But anyway, just so, it's not that we're ignoring it, we've had barely 2 days to even, look at what you sent us. So I just want to make that clear, that's all.
No problem. So one of the best practice policies that New Jersey School Board Association put together is called staff conduct with students. It addresses what is appropriate staff behavior, what should be prohibited conduct, okay? What to do about reporting violations and disciplinary action. Also, there's another policy for fraternization, what employees should not do and what supervisors should not do, and the implementation, and also the workplace harassment, and last but not least, the workplace anti-bully policy. Okay? Workplace anti-bully policy, because employees can get bullied and they're not supposed to bully another employee. So they covered the district's current needs, I believe. And what else? I also I looked at our current policies, and we don't have any of those. The only policy that it's similar to them is the healthy workplace policy, which we have the same policy for teaching staff members, and also for 3351, and also for support staff member, which is the same policy. But again, it's very general. So our policy is very general, and antiquated is called healthy work environment, and the one the New Jersey School Board Association recommends workplace harassment. Did you forward these policies to the board attorney?
I don't think I did.
Why?
Because you sent it to me Saturday morning.
I sent it on Friday.
Okay, oh, it was the weekend, okay, number one. Number two, I had to work today. Number three, I had to go watch my grandson's soccer game. Number four, I had to clean the garage. So, I will, but I just did not have a chance to
You
do
could have
it
delegated
this
to the
weekend.
vice president.
Mr. Santana, would you like me to run through my itinerary again?
Well,
I'm just saying.
I understand.
You know, you send me stuff and you expect me, and this isn't the first time this happened, you send me stuff at the last minute and then you expect me to jump on it. I'm sorry, like you, I have a personal life and I have a family, okay? I have to work to make money. I have to go to my grandson's soccer game. I have to do things with my wife. And sometimes board policies have to take a back seat. If it was an emergency, I would have jumped right on it. It was not.
I think ethics and inappropriate behavior policies, it's something we will not put in the back burner. If I don't have time as a board member, I understand you have a personal life. I have a personal life too. But if I don't have the time to take care of something, I delegate. And we have a vice president. So that's what I think you should have delegated, because according to the New Jersey School Board Association, we have to consult with the board attorney. And we are, this district, this is my personal opinion as a board member, we cannot afford not to have the appropriate, specific, up-to-date policies to address staff conduct with students. We have to make sure that our children are protected. I'm not saying they're not protected. We have to make sure our employees are protected. okay? And the interests of the district are taken care of. And the current policies that we have, the code of ethics and the inappropriate behavior are just too general, antiquated, and do not address the 21st century issues that we are facing. And you know, I don't want anybody's teacher. I don't want anybody's teacher getting in trouble because they're doing something they're not supposed to do. One, and I don't want the employee to be in a position they're not supposed to be, because I want to make sure everybody's doing the right thing. So you didn't send it to the attorney.
Okay, Mrs. Tina, I apologize. You did send it to me Friday night at 9:02. Okay, I'm sorry I didn't look at it, but I will speak to the superintendent. I did speak to the superintendent about it, and we'll talk to the attorney. That's number one. Number two, right, our policy book was just reviewed by Strauss Esseman. All right, they did not say any of these policies that you're discussing antiquated, outdated, or ineffective. All right, that's your opinion. You're certainly entitled to it. But the policy experts that we use, and I'm not saying we're not going to look at what you sent to me, because I talked to the superintendent about it today, probably a lot of that stuff is melded into the policies we have now. If there's something in there that should be made part of our policy, or if we have to adopt a new policy, we'll certainly do that. But it wasn't an emergency that anybody had to deal with a Friday night at 9:02, or Saturday, or Sunday, or even today. We will do it, we will work on it, it'll be on a policy meeting in the very near future.
I respectfully disagree with a lot of what you say.
Okay.
I don't think when we get a board agenda on a Friday, and we expect it to come up with questions on a Monday, that is the same thing that you are saying.
Nobody ever said that.
Okay.
Nobody ever said that.
If we are putting in the back burner the policies that address staff conduct, fraternization, work harassment, workplace anti-bullying, I want to hear from the rest of the board.
No, well, no.
Because I sent,
no,
wait a minute, this is the discussion we're supposed to have. I sent this to the board for consideration. This policy didn't come from me.
No, but
This
you
policy-
sent it 3 days before the meeting. I don't know why you expect everybody to drop their lives because you think something needs to be addressed
Okay,
right away.
you don't think right now we need to look at the staff conduct with students policy? You don't think we need to address that and have a
I
conversation?
didn't say that. It doesn't have to be
Then
done
why didn't you
today.
send it to the board attorney?
Send it to me 9:02 on Friday. I will go through my itinerary again for Saturday if you would like. I went to the bagel store and had breakfast. My wife and I went to ShopRite.
We don't
I went
have-
to my
we don't
grandson's
have-
soccer game.
We don't have this,
Listen, I'm done.
just
I'm
as a
done.
point of information, just,
You know, you can criticize me all you want. I'm done. Go ahead.
you can make excuses all you want. Okay, we don't have a staff conduct with student policy. We don't have a fraternization policy. We don't have a
Everything
work,
in there is covered in the other two policies. Okay.
we only have one.
All right,
that is
Mr.
similar.
Santana, you have anything else besides?
I want to hear from my colleagues.
I think I was next.
Mike, Ron, Cindy,
I was next, wasn't I?
Mark, Mike, Ron,
Okay.
Cindy.
Yeah, I was next, correct?
I just
I
said
just
Mark.
called him.
Okay, okay.
I said Mark, Mike, Ron, Cindy.
I wanted to agree with Mr. Santana. I read over those policies that New Jersey School Board has. The anti-bullying policy is something that I don't see being addressed at all in our policies.
Let's be clear, you're talking about staff, not students.
No, I'm talking about staff.
Okay,
I'm
I
talking
just want to be
about-
clear because we do
Yeah,
have.
the students definitely.
Okay,
is
all right.
covered. There is nothing that I could see regarding the staff. I think that policy is an excellent policy that should be placed somewhere in our policy booklet. Also, the workplace harassment
I read it.
is something additional as well that I have not found in our policies that I think also should be placed in our policy booklet. And I do want to say that Strauss Esme is a reliable, is a good firm to get information with. However, just because they're experts doesn't mean that they don't make mistakes, because everybody is human and everybody makes mistakes. So they could have overlooked something that perhaps should have been placed in here. My question is, if New Jersey School Boards provides us with these policies, why are we paying an outside firm to do the other policies? I mean, have we ever looked into New Jersey School Boards and using them directly rather than Strauss?
Before you got on the board, we used New Jersey School Boards.
Okay.
And I don't remember, I guess it was Bruce was superintendent, and Lisa was the HR director, said that they believed Strauss Esme was the better option. They were more up to date, they were more responsive, they did things when you needed, where school boards was a little bit slow and a little bit less aggressive. That was 15 years ago. We can certainly discuss at some point in the future going back to school boards, but we did use them at one time.
Just to evaluate whether or not they're better
We'll have a
than-
discussion about it, sure.
Yeah, than Strauss. That's number one. Thank you. And the second one is policy 3281, inappropriate staff conduct. It says, if I'm reading this correctly, when there is an investigation going on, the human resource person is responsible for conducting the evaluation. Am I correct?
You're on the regulation.
Yes. Yes. Am I correct?
Where are you?
Number, whichever number, it doesn't matter. It's the district regulation. I believe it states that the human resource person is in charge of that investigation. I would like to suggest that that not be her to do this investigation. We have a director of security who probably is better trained in investigating situations. And I would think that perhaps this director should be the one who is in charge of those investigations rather than human resources.
I think that would depend on the allegation, if it was violent or something, but if it's just typical.
I would actually, to take it a step further, I would almost put the superintendent will appoint somebody to conduct an investigation. Because due to the nature of it and what that particular investigation is, it could be maybe more in her wheelhouse of affirmative action or whatever it could be. And, you know, if it's the director of security or talking about a graffiti incident by Sasso Field, it may be more in his wheelhouse. So I don't want to pigeonhole ourselves to one person. And it very well could be, sorry, I'm just saying, not that this happened, but vaping in the bathroom where maybe our assistant principal may be all over it for whatever reason.
Then
So
I like your suggestion.
Yeah, I think if you put the superintendent, will, you know, designate someone. I do just want to just piggyback on this whole conversation. Strauss asked me in New Jersey School Board's healthy dialogue. Just because there was a New Jersey School Board's policy that has a certain title, doesn't mean that we don't have the same policy. Or a policy by a different name with the same content and material that we should look at. So I know that we did receive these late Friday night. What we need to do is look at it and say, okay, does this match up with any of our policies? Make an educated decision and then come back to the board and say, okay, we did our due diligence, not over the weekend, but we did our due diligence, now we're coming back with this information. So, because we very well we know that we were talking like, wait, this matches up with this one here or there, but.
That's fine with me.
Mike?
All right, real quick, not to belabor this. Can we, while we're looking at where they match up, where they might match up, can we contact Strauss Esman and can we see tell them specifically which policies we're looking at when it comes to that? No, when it comes to when it comes to the
harassment,
the ones that Wilkin got from. Yeah.
We just haven't had a chance to do
Because
that.
I think they might, because all of our policies right now are formatted in the Strauss Esme way, as opposed to the New Jersey School Board's format. So it would kind of be interesting to me, you know, I'd like to, if possible, stay to one format, as long as it does the same thing.
Can I say something?
No. Sue's next.
No, go ahead.
You waved me off.
I just want to say that there have been many times where people have been very vocal about the timing of receiving certain articles and said that they didn't have enough information in order to make a decision. I did read them, but I know how our policy manual works. And just because one whole thing is not in one whole place doesn't mean that it's not covered in different policies. And that's where the human resources person comes into play, because she knows exactly what the numbers are and cross-reference the policies. So if these came out on Friday, the director of human resources doesn't work on Saturday or Sunday, so today was the first day that she was in the office. And same with the borough, with the board attorney. If he had emailed him on Friday night, he wouldn't have gotten his email until Monday, because he's off on Saturday and Sunday as well. So I think we have to be a little bit reasonable, and nobody is saying that these policies aren't important, and because we're not, doing it right this minute. I don't want to do it right this minute if I don't have everything in front of me. And I would like to give the administration and the human resources, the superintendent and the director of human resources, time to put it in a format so we can say, okay, paragraph A, B, C, and D, it may not be here, but you can find it in policy A, B, C, and D, and we can cross-reference and make sure that everything is being covered. But that is going to take a little bit of time, and I'm not saying that it's not important, because it is. But to discuss it this evening with very limited information and not knowing where else the words could be found, I'm not willing to talk about it. I'll take a deferment until I have the information in front of me.
Same thing on the last word.
No, Mr. Barbosa was.
He changed his mind.
Okay. I understand what Ms. Quackenbush stated. I am very sad. I'm gonna say it. I'm very sad. I don't know. Maybe I think Mr. Itkin is also one of the. I think the daughter attends school. He's in kindergarten school, right? Okay. So right now, as far as I know, I'm the only board member that has a child in the school system. Yes? In our schools.
Julie does.
Okay, in this meeting.
Les does.
Okay, besides Vladimir.
It doesn't matter, we're not taking a census.
What I'm trying to say is, this may be something that you feel we can put up a few days. I feel, as someone that have a child attending the school system, our school system, that time is of the essence. And the board president is an attorney. Time of the essence means we cannot put this for later. And I agree 100% with what Ms. Quackenbush stated. We have to give the opportunity for the HR office, the policy person to look at this, match this and that, the board attorney to look, research, yes. But hear my plight as a board member whose child is attending the school system. One of these policies states, appropriate staff behavior. Refrain from using school contacts and privileges to promote partisan politics, sectarian religious views, or selfish propaganda of any kind. Right now, that's not on our policy. On fraternization. Employees are discouraged from romantic and or sexual expression while on duty.
It's illegal.
Just let me finish. Okay? That is not on our policy. Workplace harassment by employees. Okay?
All that's in the policy.
A lot of this is not. Workplace anti-bullying policy. That's not. We have child bullying policy. We don't have one specific. So,
I'm going to stay down. I'm going to give 30 more seconds, and then you'll be able to.
this is the second time you interrupt me. What I'm trying to say is this. The decisions we make in this board affect every single children. And the decisions we choose not to make affect the children. And I'm not saying people on this board don't care because your children are not currently going to the school system. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying, put yourself in the shoes of every parent whose kids attend the school system. So, I'm gonna leave it at that.
Thank you very much. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
What about public comment? Public comment?
No, this was just.
I don't have enough information, I read it, but I need more time. I'm not-
What stuff you talked about? Okay, any comments on the two policies that we discussed, 3281 and 3211? Comments from the public, I'm sorry, you're right, go ahead, 3211, 3281. Adi, Alba, Lisa, and that gentleman.
I'd like to, thank you, I'd like to address the board regarding the discussion that just ensued here about staff and teacher conduct, and I wanted to ask that when this is being considered, the revision of the current policies, that we take into account a few recent incidents that happened in Fairlawn and some corrective action that I'd like to suggest. So as you know, there was an incident that my daughter was involved in with a teacher in Fairlawn High School, a history teacher, that was making political propaganda comments to a bunch of classes in the high school and some anti-Semitic comments. There is or was an investigation. I'm not aware of the results of the investigation, but one of the things I wanted to discuss was that when we address this policy, the policy has to include corrective action to repair the damage that was done to the kids. It's not enough that we address the staff member that did whatever it is they did, and however we choose to address it, and I'm very hopeful that it's going to be addressed in the appropriate manner, but there was damage that was done to these kids. All the classes that this particular content was shown in and discussed, there was damage. And in addition to training of the staff, which I really do appreciate, and I had a meeting with Mr. Gorski this morning, and I understand that there's training of the staff that's being done, and I appreciate it, that's wonderful. We also need to go back to these kids, every single child that was there listening to the justification of the terror attacks at 9/11, and tell them that this was wrong. Tell them that there's nothing in this world that should justify, nothing that justifies the murder of 3,000 innocent people, and that no amount of frustration or being upset or being not agreeing with any kind of policy justifies terrorism. And I think that that lesson needs to be learned, that we can't wait for the curriculum to continue when this impression, and this is the takeaway that these kids had, ninth graders in Fairlawn High School, after coming off of 2 years of pandemic where they've barely been in school, and this is what their takeaway is. We have to fix that. So this is just one example, but I'd like to request that when we do implement policies regarding addressing conduct or misconduct or issues of teachers that are bringing their opinions or political agenda or whatever it is into the classroom, that we also address the kids that were exposed to it and not just the staff, please, because that's completely gone from the discussion. And another thing that I wanted to discuss, which is very similar, since this school year began, I'm aware of 3 major incidents with 3 different teachers, all different behaviors, but with teachers that incidents happened with them in the past, very similar incidents, in different, not all in Fairlawn High School, in different schools. And so I feel like, I know that it's very difficult to, and you're not sharing disciplinary action, which is completely fine, but I also feel that sometimes we're hiding behind this personnel issues that are private, and we're not really addressing the issues. And we have teachers in Fairlawn that are continuing to teach year after year after year, and they are bullying, harassing, and intimidating students, and that has got to end. So I'm really imploring this board to take this more seriously when there are repeat complaints about teachers that are hurting children, and tenure or not tenure, whatever it is, get them, don't let them continue to hurt these children, because I think our children have been through enough. So I would appreciate these things being considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Yorman.
I'm gonna pass.
I'm sorry?
I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Albus, this gentleman, and then Stella.
I think it's a good idea to review the policies to make sure, like you said, where these fall and how you're gonna address them and update them. With all the new technology, now there are so many other ways where staff have to be careful, like social media. And I'm glad to hear that you're doing some training. We in Columbia University take training every year on sexual harassment and inappropriate conduct. So if that's something that can be provided, in my opinion, I do it every year, it's a pain in the butt, but it is great to, it's a great, yeah, you have to just keep hammering down. They give you scenarios, and they give you a quiz at the end, so you know that you got the information that you needed. So it's great to have a policy, but it would be greater to support our teachers with enough information and training so they can make better decisions.
Gentleman in the back. That's you, sir.
Professional conduct in board meetings. I'd like you to all consider certain members of your own board's behavior as compared to other board members' behavior. Ms. Quackenbush, you had a very...
Please do not direct your comments to the board members, you direct them to me.
Ms. Quackenbush, it's a problem if I look at her while I make my comment?
Yes, it is.
Really?
Yes, it's supposed to be directing to me, she may take that the wrong way, that's all. So you just say what you want, but just direct your comments to the chair. Those are the rules.
Those are the rules.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush had an excellent comment with regards to Mr. Santana's observations about the expediency on which certain discussions happen. I appreciate your comments, Ms. Quackenbush. Mr. Banta, you behaved entirely differently, and I would encourage the board to compare and contrast behaviors, because you, sir, are rude, intimidating, and don't encourage other board members to have difference of opinions. Then you seem to make excuses for everything instead of just listening. It's your job to conduct a professional board meeting, which doesn't include behavior that insults other board members, like laughing at them, or expressions that demean what they're trying to convey. That's my observations. I encourage all board members to demand that a different tone be set, professional being the word that these board members deserve, all of us, and the public. Very important topics need to be discussed.
Anything else, sir?
I'm finished.
Are you finished? Thank you. Stella, you had to say something?
Yes, it's in regards to 3211, Code of Ethics, item number 6, and letter A. So, shall not, on basis of race, color, creed, sex, national origin, marital status, local, and so on, sexual orientation, unfairly exclude any student from participation in any program. So, to add to these comments in light of recent events, by allowing teachers to have propaganda videos in the classroom, there should be some sort of monitoring of what is actually being displayed to the teachers, to the children by these teachers. And also some sort of, and I don't know for sure if there's even something that's currently being enforced, but cultural empathy of sort, where the teachers become aware of their surroundings. Fairlawn is a very diverse town with different pockets of diversity. There should be some sort of cultural awareness training throughout the year, not just a one-day training. Some non-verbal communication skills, if they're showing signs of aggression as part of the recommendation, is like the first level, and this is just my thoughts as I listen to you guys come up with great policy suggestions. So nonverbal communication skills being taught to the teachers, and making sure that the videos and content be approved by someone prior to something like 9/11 education. Honestly, as someone who is an immigrant and a refugee and someone that enlisted in the military, I find it very offensive that that type of propaganda is displayed in the classrooms to these children. That's all.
Thank you, Stella. Gentlemen, you haven't spoken yet. Just give your name for the record, please.
Chris Antonelli. Just to jump on the back of what Stella just said, I understand where she's coming from with the cultural reference, the culture and the way the town is set up and the people who live here. But wouldn't it be better if the teachers just stuck to education and the facts?
Yeah.
I mean, instead of worrying about who's going to offend somebody, when you're teaching based on facts and actual things that are in books, you don't have to worry about culture because it's history. It's actual history. That's all I need to say. That's all that anybody needs to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Yorman, you have the last word.
Yeah, so, there was a lot of back and forth about, somebody sent something on Friday, and you don't count the weekends, and then it's Monday, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I went online to pull down the agenda for tonight, last night, and everything was on there except for the board policies that were going to be changed. And that wasn't put up until this morning. So as much as you didn't have time to review and you had 3 days, I didn't have time to review and I only had a few hours.
Board policies were up since last week.
As part of the agenda.
Okay. Members of the audience, thank you. Members of the board, thank you. Could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. Second.
Somebody all in favor?
Aye.